The United Nations Security Council held an emergency meeting to discuss Iran's counterattack against Israeli military positions. In Cuba, Grenada's Prime Minister wrapped up his official visit after high-level talks on the signing of cooperation and bilateral agreements. The withdrawal of U.S. troops. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. This Sunday, the United Nations Security Council held an emergency meeting to discuss Iran's counterattack against Israeli military positions. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres warned the international community against deeper descent into conflict. Israel's ambassador to the UN, Gilad Erdan, called on the Security Council to impose all possible sanctions on Iran. For his part, Iran's ambassador to the UN, Amir Said Iravani, said his nation had no choice but to exercise its right to self-defense, adding that the Security Council had failed in its duty to maintain international peace and security by not condemning the April 1st attack on the Iranian consulate in Damascus. Iravani specified that Tehran does not want an escalation, but will respond to any threat or aggression. The Iranian Armed Forces confirmed Operation True Promise in response to the Israeli attacks on the Iranian consulate in Syria has been completed and it has been extremely successful. Iranian Armed Forces Chief of Staff Major General Mohammad Bagheri reiterated statements made by Iranian President Ibrahim Raisi about the operation being in defense of sovereignty and national interests because with the attack on the Iranian consulate in Syria, Israel had crossed all of Iran's red lines and that was unacceptable. Also, Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps Commander-in-Chief Hossein Salami said that the True Promise operation was successful beyond all expectation.
From our side, this operation is over and we have no intention to continue. But if the Zionist regime takes any action against the Islamic Republic of Iran, either on our soil or in places that belong to us in Syria or elsewhere, our next operation will be much bigger. The impacts of which we have accurate and documented information on the ground show that the operation was extremely successful, beyond our expectation.
Let us review the content of Article 51 of the UN Charter under which Iran launched its Operation True Promise in response to multiple aggressions by Israel. Article 51 stipulates there is nothing in the United Nations Charter that shall impair the inherent right to individual or collective self-defense in the event of an armed attack against any state. Tehran argued that as a result of the Israeli aggression on April 1st on its consulate in Damascus, the Syrian capital, 7 Iranian citizens, including several Revolutionary Guard senior officers, were killed. They recalled that there had been a previous incident in which another prominent Iranian officer had been killed in Lebanon in an Israeli operation. Now let's go over Saturday's key events as the armed forces of Iran launched hundreds of drones and missiles against occupied territories and Israeli positions. Over 500 drones were launched. In addition, Houthi forces in Yemen and Hezbollah in Lebanon launched attacks against Israeli territory. The Iranian defense team detailed that such action is in response to numerous crimes by the Zionist regime, including the assassination of Iranian military commanders and advisors. The Iranian authorities declared to the Western media that their attacks were directly, exclusively against military targets of the Tel Aviv regime. Let us also review why the Israeli military base Nevatim, against which Iran focused part of its response operation, became a key target. Nevatim is Israel's most important military facility. It is positioned 100 kilometers from Iranian territory and 15 kilometers from the city of Beersheba in the Negev desert. This base houses the 103rd Squadron as well as the 116th and 140th Operational Squadrons of F-35 fighters responsible for the genocidal operation in Gaza and the 117th Training Squadron that provides training to F-35 pilots. It is also the headquarters of Squadron 122, belonging to the Israeli Espionage Service, and is the hangar of presidential aircraft and headquarters of the important Zionist espionage components. Iranian citizens took to the streets of Iran to celebrate the Revolutionary Guard's response against the Israeli regime. Citizens gathered this Saturday night in different parts of Iran to show their support. The largest mobilization took place in the capital, Tehran, at the Palestinian Square, where demonstrators also showed their support to the Palestinian cause and rejected the Israeli occupation. Mobilizations were held as well in front of the United Kingdom Embassy. Also in Jordan, hundreds of citizens gathered near the Israeli embassy in Amman to protest the genocide in the Gaza Strip. They demand that official measures be taken to stop the launching of missiles, and in addition to guaranteeing the entry of humanitarian aid into the territory. Meanwhile, Israel, Jordan, Iraq, and Lebanon have reopened their airspace after 7 hours of closure. The Israeli occupier was the first one to conclude the closure of its airspace and the re-establishment of operations at Ben Gurion Airport, considered the most important airport in the country. Jordan, Lebanon, and Iraq also confirmed the reactivation of airport operations. These nations closed their airspace because Iran notified well in advance about the development of the True Promise military operation. Expected that the frequency of their flights will be lower than usual, and they will even register some changes in their schedules. The government of India has also expressed concern of the escalation of hostilities between Iran and Israel and has called for an immediate reduction of tensions and for a return to the path of diplomacy. In a statement issued by India's foreign ministry, the Indian government calls the parties involved to exercise restraint and to distance themselves from violence. The foreign ministry says that New Delhi is closely following the events and that its embassies in the countries of the region are in close contact with the Indian diaspora. They note, however, that the current situation represents a threat to peace and security in the region. In this context, Russia and China, along with other nations, have issued similar calls to the international community. The Palestinian resistance movement Hamas has considered the Iranian response to the Zionist occupiers' attacks as fair and deserved. The True Promise operation carried out this Saturday against military targets of the occupier is, according to Hamas, a natural right and a deserved response to the crime against the Persian consular headquarters in Syria. In his statement, the Palestinian group called on the free peoples of the world and the forces of resistance in the region to continue their support for the Al-Aqsa flood operation. Israeli armed forces carried out 4 massacres in the Gaza Strip, leaving 43 Palestinians killed and 62 wounded over the weekend. The Palestinian Health Ministry reported that the total death toll from the Israeli genocide against Gaza rose to 33,729, while more than 76,000 people have been wounded. Health authorities also detailed that several victims are still under the rubble and on the roads, where civil defense teams and ambulances cannot reach them due to the Israeli siege. For its part, the Palestinian Foreign Ministry denounced the crimes committed by armed Israeli settlers against Palestinian citizens and called on the international community to reject these actions and to judge the guilty parties of these actions. In Mexico, citizens rallied in solidarity with the Palestinian people and condemned the Israeli genocide in Gaza. Demonstrators demanded that the Mexican government break diplomatic relations with Tel Aviv and pointed out the responsibility of the United States for the Israeli aggressions against Palestine by sending resources and weapons to the Zionist regime. The demonstration was led by a group of women waving Palestinian flags amid slogans expressing rejection of genocide and demanding a ceasefire in Gaza. Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. Other stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back. On Sunday in Cuba, Grenada's Prime Minister Dickon Mitchell wrapped up his official visit following high-level talks prior to signing cooperation and bilateral agreements. Cuban President Miguel Díaz-Canel thanked Grenada for its unwavering support to Cuba through collaboration and business advisory. Mitchell met with President Díaz-Canel and with Cuban Prime Minister Manuel Marrero to foster bilateral relations. Mitchell assessed as positive progress made on agreements signed over a year ago in St. George, the capital of Grenada, and signed new bilateral agreements relating to the environment, education, public health, agriculture and fisheries, among others.
This visit also shows the strong will on both sides to continue moving forward, to continue consolidating and strengthening ties between both our governments and peoples.
The Cuban president took the opportunity to underscore the youth and commitment of Prime Minister of Grenada.
We appreciate you as a young Caribbean leader of Latin America and the Caribbean, and we respect and admire what you are doing for your nation, for your people, and also for the friendship and respect that you have expressed towards Cuba.
This Saturday, the Democratic Party, We Are Peru, denounced the attempt of homicide against the regional governor of San Martin, Walter Grundel, who is a militant of that political organization. The organization clarified that the regional governor was not hurt after the aggression. However, members of his security team were wounded and admitted at a local hospital. The party demands an investigation and that the authorities guarantee the protection and security of the governor and his family. In Venezuela, President Nicolás Maduro commemorated the 22nd anniversary of the triumph of the civic military union that succeeded in rescuing President Hugo Chavez on April 13, 2002. President Maduro commemorated the Day of Dignity 22 years after the Popular Revolution of April, where the people led a popular move for the return to power of Hugo Chavez, which forever changed the history and the political future of the country. Maduro led a rally in the city of Caracas, where observing this day together with lieutenants and cadets who took part in rescuing Chavez, and also with thousands of citizens who came out to the streets to celebrate. The rally featured performances of musical groups and speeches by keynote speakers. In the framework of the upcoming presidential elections in the country, the National Electoral Council of Venezuela met with international observers to sign an agreement for the polls to be held on July 28th. From Caracas, our correspondent Adriana Sivori provides us further details in the following report.
The electoral power of Venezuela and the international observers of the Latin American Council of Electoral Experts sealed agreements at the Observatory of Regional Integration.
Observers are not the ones who come to judge whether the election is right or wrong. They come to collaborate with the electoral bodies of all our nations in order to give their feedback in each balloting so that our states can make future breakthroughs. Indeed, it has worked. In all, it has been working in all countries.
Both organizations highlighted the fact that Venezuela is one of the few countries in the world that uses an electronic voting and dual validation system. The attached document sets the observation terms. According to the agreement, they will be able to accompany the whole process, such as the training of polling stations members, campaigns as well as the 16 audits.
That is paramount. Affirming and consolidating democracy is crucial for us. To achieve so, we think the electoral route is the only feasible path to strengthen democracy. Thus, we welcome the fact that in the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, broad sectors of the opposition have decided to run for these elections, and in the end, as we say, it is the people, the Venezuelan people, who define and vote for their representatives.
Experts will present their first observation briefing on the first day of the electoral closure. The last one will be at the end of the voting, just after outcomes will be known.
We hope observers will accompany us throughout this trajectory from now to July 28, being distinguished for your objectivity. You'll be able to present your final report to the National Electoral Council with any suggestions you may have today, after the election day or this electoral celebration.
They assured that the joint commitment is to consolidate democracy, peace, and by and large, citizen participation.
Adriana Sivori, teleSUR, Caracas.
We have a fun short break coming up, but before we invite you to join our WhatsApp community for our English-speaking audience, you can scan the QR code on screen to join directly and share the link to reach more people. Constant news coverage of Latin America and the Caribbean as well as the rest of the world. Stay connected and informed with teleSUR. Fun short break, don't go away. Welcome back. In Niger, hundreds of demonstrators took to the streets to demand that the junta government immediately expel U.S. troops from the territory. Nigerians demand that the U.S. brigades leave immediately, as it happened with the French soldiers. Demonstrators reiterated that the age of empires and colonies had come to an end. Niger had signed an agreement that allowed the presence of 1,000 Pentagon troops. The junta government terminated the agreement, opting for a military exchange with Russia. In the United Kingdom, the Labour Party is backing the government in its intention to increase military spending in detriment of other public services. Labour Party leader Keir Starmer is facing negative comments for having suggested increasing military spending by up to 2.5% of the nation's gross domestic product. His proposal is in tune with the Conservative Party's stance to raise the defense budget to the equivalent of $13.5 billion. This coincides with the announcements made by several European leaders that point to the militarization of the continent and the possibility of a conventional war in the making. Russia's defense ministry reported the surrender of at least 9 Ukrainian soldiers in the Donbas region. The Russian Ministry of Defense indicated that the captured Ukrainian soldiers said that their commanders never showed up at their military posts and that the missions were ordered remotely by radio communication. Soldiers said that they were sent to that territory to expose themselves despite colossal losses. In addition, they revealed that there is poor battle planning, poor training of commanders, huge losses of men and equipment, as well as panic in the units. In Russia, new floods were reported in the residential areas of Orenburg city over the weekend. The mayor of Orenburg, Sergei Salmin, announced a massive evacuation in the area on Friday after the Ura River water level increased. The authorities classified the situation in the region as a federal emergency of major importance. The water level is expected to exceed 11 meters, putting the city at risk of flooding, and residents of all settlements along the river have been asked to evacuate from the area.
As long as there is light, electricity, and water, we will stay here. Of course, we are ready to move with our relatives at any time. They are ready to provide shelter. Today we placed a lot of sacks in that half. We started to build a dam from there. We moved and came here. Some people are working on one side, some are on the other. They are still working there now.
Russia's Science Academy Geophysical Service has reported activity in the crater of the Ebeko volcano in the Kuril archipelago. The Geophysical Service has confirmed the presence of an ash plume higher than 2,000 meters above sea level coming from the Ebeko crater. According to sources, the smoke cloud extends 7 kilometers to the southeast of the Kuril archipelago. The 1,156-meter high volcano last erupted in 2012. Then it remained calm until 2016. Since then, it has spewed ash every so often. In 2018, the Ebeko volcano had a 6,000-meter high smoke plume. We have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. Also join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.